Welcome to the Manders Mindset Podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective, and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome back to Amanda's Mindset. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and we are here today with Tenya Eikenberg, and I am so excited to be here with her today. She is an energy healer who is also a certified life and self-care coach whose passion is to help women release their emotional baggage and direct their energies towards efforts to heal and regain strength, freedom, and happiness. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
So that's an awesome bio, but who would you say Tenya is at the core?
I am somebody who wants to help people to be happy. I want everybody to be happy at the core. I want them to be able to see things from different perspectives so that they can manage any situation, so that they have compassion and empathy for whatever they're going through for themselves. I've come to realize as I've gotten older that at the core, I just want everybody to be happy, find happiness with where they are, instead of continuing to just kind of look for it in the future.
Have you always been that type of person?
I think so. I've always been the type of person that always wanted everybody around me to feel comfortable and to be happy. I'm not sure if it comes from a place of wanting to avoid confrontation. I think some of it came from that originally, was if everybody's happy around me, then there aren't any uncomfortable moments and there isn't any confrontation, because that's what I grew up in, was a lot of confrontation and conflict and frustration. Originally, it started out as wanting to people please so that everybody around me was happy. But as I've gone through my healing journey, it's morphed more into, yeah, we all go through stuff that we have to work through, but there's always a silver lining. Even in the bad stuff, there's always a silver lining. There's always a reason why a particular situation happened for us. I have not had to go through the situation where I've lost somebody, so I can't take that type of situation and find the silver lining. But I've had some situations where I've had to stop and go, why is this horrible thing happening for me? And what can I get out of it that's going to be a more positive experience?
I love that. Now, you mentioned a little bit about avoiding confrontation, and there was a lot of confrontation growing up. Can you take us down memory lane a little bit? Tell us about childhood, family dynamic, however deep I want to take that.
It's my story. Even if my family were to hear this, which they probably won't, it doesn't matter much because it's my story. It's my perception of what happened. I grew up in a home where my parents got together and my dad already had 2 kids. And so when my parents got married, my mom became an instant mother. And then about a year after they were married, I was born. Another 2 years after that, my little brother was born. But there was a lot of conflict between my mom and my older brother and sister. I don't know the real reasons why. All I know is what I felt, what memories I have, and what I've been told by my older sibling. There was a lot of conflict, especially when they became teenagers, pressing their boundaries, trying to see what they can get away with. Don't know if it was handled correctly. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of compassion, but then again, I was 7, 8 years old, so I'm not even sure what that compassion was supposed to look like at that age. But I do remember my older siblings and my mom fighting a lot in the house. And I think I learned from that, if mom wasn't happy, then nobody was happy. And so I quickly learned to walk on eggshells and not cause ripples because I didn't want to have to deal with what my older siblings were dealing with. And so I became a people pleaser. And things did get better when my older siblings moved out, but I was already in that mode of making sure that mom was happy, that dad was happy, that everybody was happy around me so then I didn't have to deal with whatever was going on. But that also made it hard for me to learn how to have my own emotions and to process my emotions because I would just stuff them down because I didn't want to get mad. I didn't want to cry because I didn't know how it was going to be handled. Because when my older siblings did that, it wasn't handled very well.
Basically keeping the peace.
Yeah. And I did that for a very, very long time.
And now you said it got a little better when they moved out. About how old were you when they moved?
So my older brother stayed with my aunt when we used to live in England. And when we came back from England, my older brother, I think he was 12 or 13 at the time, he was either going to be sent away or he had to live with somebody else. So my aunt chose to take him in. So he stayed with my aunt and I was almost 9 at the time. And then my parents, my older sister, and my younger brother and me all moved to Idaho. And then my sister stayed in the home until she was about 17. And then she moved out. So by the time I was 12, both of them had moved out before they were 18.
Now you said you were in England and you went from England to Idaho. Where did you go?
My dad was in the Air Force. So we started out mostly in Idaho. We lived about 13 years in Idaho. It was split between 2 different tours and 3 years in England and then Texas. And we finally settled in Maryland. And that's where I've been since 93.
Okay. So they both moved out before they were 18. And now how did that change like family dynamic household for you?
I remember that there wasn't as much yelling going on. But by that time, I think I had also learned to just stay out of the house. And so I would be at friends' houses all the time. Or I'd stay in my room. I do remember good times. We had a lot of good times. We would go camping as a family, and that was always fun. The holidays were always fun. But by the time I became a teenager, I would start to push my boundaries. And I learned very quickly that that was not a good idea. Just because there was a lot of yelling and there was some physical discipline, but not as much as there was when my older siblings were living there. So it got better because I think I just learned to not rock the boat.
Okay. And now how was school for you?
School was pretty good. Average grades. I had good friends. At the time in the military, you move every 3 or 4 years. So you make friends every 3 or 4 years. A beautiful thing with Facebook now is that I have friends all over the world because I was able to find the kids that I went to school with and now we're, catch up on Facebook and everything, which is wonderful. But one thing I noticed that I did, and I didn't realize this until probably about a year ago, but if the previous kids in the other school didn't take to me like I wanted them to take to me, like I wasn't a popular girl, I didn't get in with the popular kids, but like each time I went to a new school, I could reinvent myself. And so I developed imposter syndrome early on because if the kids at the other school didn't like me for something, I could change that at the next school. But what I also found was that really didn't matter much because eventually the real me tended to come out. That imposter syndrome of, oh, well, the kids at this school didn't like that part of me, so I'm going to hide it here. And sometimes it would be revealed, sometimes it wouldn't be, but it was interesting as I looked back going through inner child work, how I had done that through each school, even at a young age.
Wow. Do you mind sharing something you were hiding?
I'm not even sure I could really pinpoint anything in particular. It might have been when I went from Idaho to Texas. It would have been more as a teenager that I would remember. And it was probably something like my hair or the way I dressed. It was probably more that kind of stuff rather than personality-wise. But that was so long ago that I'm not sure I could really pinpoint what it would be.
I gotcha. But it started showing up early for you.
It did. It did.
And now, post school, when did you move out? Did you go to college?
Gosh, that's a story. No, I had wanted to go to college, but my parents couldn't afford it. And they never really helped me to figure out whether I could get loans or anything like that. So I went right into the workforce, started working for a photography company called Olin Mills. They did studio photography. Ironically, my husband is the one that hired me. So he was my photographic supervisor. And our little story is that he hired me behind the shopping center because the studio was behind the shopping center at the time. And we started dating. I got hired in July. We started dating in September, got pregnant in November, December, and that was 28 years ago. We now have 3 beautiful kids. Our oldest is 28, and the twins will be 25 in January.
So you get this job. Now, did you move out? Like, when did you leave the parents?
I moved out when I got pregnant. So February of 96 was when I moved out of my parents' house and moved in with my husband and his 2 roommates. And then August, we moved into our own apartment. So August, we lived with his roommates for a couple of months. But yeah, I had never lived on my own. I went from my parents to my husband's. And I was 19 years old.
So you start working at this photography company and you start dating your husband. And then what?
Get pregnant. Yep. We found out January 7th that I was pregnant. And it was the most scariest time. During that time, talk shows were really big, like daytime talk shows, 3-4 o'clock slot. You had like Sally Jesse Raphael, Oprah, Phil Donahue. The shows that were on at the time was he doesn't want to, he's left me with this baby. I'm raising this baby on my own. He doesn't want to touch me after having a baby. All these, these shows about relationships and how they are crumbling after having kids. And so we got pregnant and I told him, and we had only been dating a few months. But in that few months, we had already told each other that we loved each other. We had already discussed if we got married, how would we be as a couple or as parents. So we'd been having those kinds of conversations, just kind of what ifs, but this really sped up the process. But it was definitely the scariest moment of my life at that point, was having to tell him that I was pregnant.
But it seems like you guys just knew. You knew that.
I think we did. And I think on a subconscious level, I was looking for something to get me out of the house because I didn't want to stay home. I wanted to move out of my parents' home because they still didn't have a healthy marriage. They were still arguing as often as I can remember. And so I think this was the universe's way of saying, and the funny thing is that, I wasn't on birth control and he knew that. And I went and got on birth control, but I still got pregnant during that first month that I was on birth control. So, because nobody told me you had to wait a month, you should still wait 30 days. No one had told me. You think the doctor would tell you that, but they didn't. But I think the universe was just like, okay, you want to get out of the house? Here's how it's going to happen. Yeah. And I was incredibly lucky and still am that he's the guy that he is because he took responsibility. We took responsibility for it. We were already falling in love with each other. It just sped up the process and we made it work to the point where even 28 years later, we still love spending time together and going on trips together and getting to know each other as a couple again.
That's beautiful. I love that for you. Sometimes the universe does things like that. Like it forces you to move, you know?
It does. The universe, life never happens. And I didn't used to believe this, but life doesn't happen to us. Life happens for us. If you are hitting wall after wall after wall, you're hitting those walls because you're either supposed to go left or you're supposed to go right. You're not supposed to keep going straight. So if you're hitting wall after wall after wall, stop and think, why am I hitting these walls? Because there might be a reason that you're hitting those walls and the universe is trying to tell you, stop hitting the goddamn wall.
That's true. So you get pregnant, you have your first kiddo. Is a boy or girl?
Girl.
So you have your daughter. Now you have 3 kiddos now.
Yeah.
How soon after your first daughter did you have the other 2?
3.5 years. We waited. I told my husband, we had talked about it and we knew we didn't want to have them too far apart. But we also wanted to make sure that we were in a position that we could afford 2 kids, that we had enough space for 2 kids. When I got pregnant, we were living in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, no basement, no upstairs. It was just a ranch-style house. And the thought was that the kids would share a room for probably 2 years before we found another home. When we got pregnant, we were elated because this was our second kid. I always wanted 3. My husband, being the financial guy, was like, I don't know if we can do 3, but let's start off with 2 and we'll see where it goes. Lo and behold, the universe said, no, we're going to give you 3. Twins don't run in my family enough that they were a consideration. And because they're a boy and a girl, I had to drop 2 eggs. That was how we got our twins.
The universe was really working in your favor. You wanted 3 kiddos, and he was like, "We'll see."
I
The universe
I
was like,
had
"Here
been
you go."
manifesting stuff for the longest time and didn't realize it.
It's like my mouth was wide open. I'm like, "You will get in your 3 kiddos."
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And before we knew we were having twins, I had a dream that I was having boy-girl twins. And I told my husband, and he's like, bite your tongue. I'm like, I don't know. It's a dream. I don't know.
Now, did you stay working at the photography company?
No. I left there when my oldest was born. And my husband worked 2 jobs so that I could stay home with her for the first year. And then I went and got a job cleaned houses, and a friend of mine watched her. And then when I got pregnant with the twins, I was so sick with them the first 6 months that I just couldn't work. And then once we found out we were having twins, it was like, there's no way I can go back to work and put 3 kids in daycare and make profit anything. I'd just be paying for daycare. So again, my husband went back to working 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, so that I could stay home with our kids until the twins got into full-time school. And I didn't go back to work until the twins were in 1st grade. So they were about 6 years old when I started back at work full-time.
And when you started back at work, what were you doing?
Retail. How fun. But it gave me the flexibility to work while the kids were in school. So up until about 2008, so that the twins were 8, Kayla would have been almost 12. I worked only while they were in school. So I worked from like 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I left after they went to school and got home before they got home. And then after they turned about 8 was when I started working other hours, because my husband would get a different job. So then he could drop a job, and then that way one of us was always home with the kids. Our kids were never in daycare, which I am incredibly proud to say, because We held our marriage together. We made time for each other. We dated each other. We put each other first along with our kids, right? So we worked opposite schedules so that one of us was always home with the kids, but yet we made sure that when we were home together, we focused on our relationship as well, because we knew that when the kids got older and they moved out, we would only have just us. So we focused on us along with the kids so that nobody suffered. And somehow we knew how to do it and it worked.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. I'm incredibly proud of what we produced with our kids and with our marriage. And I try not to brag about it, but it's really hard when I have good relationships with all three of my kids. My husband and I are just in love with each other and enjoy spending time together. It just makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it totally does. So you were working retail and you're back working. How long you do that while the kids are in school?
I worked in retail until 2014. My last job was I worked in a mall, and they were opening for Thanksgiving Day again. And I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And so I made the little steps. I went from full on retail to a medical retail store that, because it was medical supplies, they were only open like Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5, and then like 9 to 2 on Saturdays. So I didn't have to work evenings anymore. And then after that, I went from, because then I had a little bit more office work under my belt after I worked there for about a year, I was able to transition to working as a receptionist. And then from that, I went to being an accounts payable manager for a rental company. And so I got out of retail and into a regular, quote unquote, 9 to 5 job within a few years of quitting retail.
Okay. And now, how did you make this shift from 9 to 5? You're doing retail, you switched to 9 to 5. How did you get into the energy healing realm? Where did this come in for you?
Yeah. So in 2018, our twins were graduating high school. We had always said that we wanted to move back to the beach when our kids graduated from high school. And again, I manifested it because the twins graduated in beginning of June. We put our house on the market in September after being offered to purchase a friend's home on the beach. We sold our house in October. We moved to the beach in November. So within 6 months of the twins graduating high school, we moved back to the beach. And being a mom of adult children, you aren't needed as much as you used to be when they were little. You don't have to tote them to soccer practice or to high school dances or to work or anything like that. And so I had been suffering with anxiety and depression my entire life. And and I had taken medication, pushed it down, went to therapy, got off did the whole roller coaster thing of dealing with my mental health as a chemical imbalance. Well, in 2018, because I wasn't busy with the kids anymore, those two decided to show up and go, hey, can you address us now? I'm anxiety and I'm depression and we want to talk. Like, it's time for you to pay attention to us. And so for the rest of 2018, all of 2019, I tried to push it away like I always did. I medicated with alcohol, with unhealthy food, because we were living by the beach. It was partying all the time. And by the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I finally realized that I needed help. I needed to figure something out. And so COVID then hit. And so I had to find a doctor online because nobody was seeing anybody in person anymore. I had to find a therapist online, which was, for me, a little taken back because I had to just read profiles to see what therapist I might align with based off of what words they put on the screen. And so I found one of that I thought I resonated with, and she was very nice. So I got on medication again. The doctor appointment for the medication lasted about 15 minutes. He asked me if I had ever been on antidepressants before. I said I had. He asked what I had been on. What did I think worked? I told him. I also wanted to quit smoking. And so he put me on this antidepressant that would help with my depression, my anxiety, and help me quit smoking. And I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Started with talk therapy. And while I think she meant well, I felt like she was working from a playbook. I didn't feel like there was very much personalization or really getting to know me to try to figure out how she could help me. By the third or fourth session, she was telling me to download a CBT app to do cognitive behavioral therapy on my own. I really didn't know what it was, and I wasn't in the state of mind to really ask a lot of questions. By week 6, I had the follow-up with the doctor for the medication, and I was like, I feel numb. I don't have as many sad feelings, but I'm still having crying spells, but I really don't feel that much better. And he was like, well, okay, how about if we up your medication and we'll see how that goes over the next 6 to 8 weeks? And it was at that point that I broke into tears after I hung up the phone with him. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this roller coaster of medication balancing anymore. And I just sat there and I cried. And while I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person. I do not want to survive with chronic anxiety. I don't want to have this anymore. I don't want to cry all the time. I don't want to worry about all of the stuff that I can't control. How do I get rid of it? And so I did a Google search for holistic emotional healing, and this modality called the emotion code came up. And that is where my energy healing journey began.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Absolutely.
You mentioned you delved down the therapeutic route before, like talk therapy before. Was that when you were a kid? When was that previously?
It was usually with my mom, because my mom has, I don't want to say she has bipolar, but she's someone who has to manage her own bipolarness. And so we would go to family therapy quite often because there was always something that she needed to talk about. And I think that also turned me a little off to wanting to go to therapy because of what I had always seen therapy being about. Whenever we went to therapy with my mom, it was a blame session. She'd blame my dad. She'd blame us kids for whatever it was that we were doing that was causing her to be upset. But I had been on antidepressants from the time I was 18 on and off to deal with, doctors would say post-baby blues, or you're just stressed. So here's some antidepressants, take these for a while, that kind of thing. Wasn't anything that was monitored a whole lot. Usually it was done through the family doctor. So it was just on and off. Whenever I felt better, I'd come off of them.
Now, approximately how old were you when you were going to family therapy with your mom?
Oh, gosh. The earliest I remember is probably 10 or 11.
So you were pretty young. And do you know, how long you did that for?
No. My childhood is quite spotty. I remember that my mom went to inpatient care, but I don't remember how long she was in inpatient care. A lot of that stuff is kind of spotty.
But so you had a little bit, almost a bias towards talk therapy.
I did. And maybe that's, and I'm sure that formed how my therapy sessions went when I would go to therapy on my own. Because I never stuck with one therapist longer than, probably 8 weeks at most.
And so you had some difficulties with the talk therapy. Then how long after the talk therapy did you do this Google search?
It was within the same week of stopping both the medication and therapy. Yeah.
Okay, so you were making moves. You weren't waiting.
Yeah,
Really?
I was like, medication and talk therapy are not working, but I know I needed something. I wasn't willing to give up finding what was going to get rid of the, as I say, chronic anxiety and depression, because I was never actually diagnosed with anxiety and depression, but I knew how I felt. And I knew that I did not want to feel that way anymore. I knew that I had to have feelings. I knew I couldn't get rid of being sad on occasion or being worried on occasion. Those are different than suffering with chronic mental illness on a daily basis. And I didn't want to suffer with a chronic mental illness on a daily basis anymore. I wanted to love life. I wanted to thrive. I didn't want to just survive and get through the day.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what did you say you Google searched again? You had a specific phrase. That like,
Yeah, it was holistic emotional healing because I didn't want to take pills. I didn't want to take supplements. I wanted to do it as naturally as possible.
okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. Holistic emotion. And holistic because you're less likely to get the medication stuff
Right.
coming up when you.
Yeah. And that was when I found the emotion code. And when I first looked into it, I was like, I don't know about this. I still had that logical scientific mind going on. I was more open to something new as well, but I wasn't quite sure what I was open to. At this point, I was probably more open to the energy work side of it because I had already been opened to the manifestation of the secret and energy work in that sense. So I had a little bit of knowledge of quantum mechanics or quantum physics in that sense. I did some Googling on it and some YouTubes and other stuff. The basic premise is that you find these trapped emotions in your body by muscle testing, which is using your body's muscles and how they react to yes and no answers to find these trapped emotions. And then after you find them, you run a magnet over the top of your head 3 times over the governing meridian to release these trapped emotions. And then they're gone. And I'm just like, okay, all right, I'll drink the Kool-Aid for a little bit and see what happens. I was skeptical, but I was interested as well. And so I found a practitioner that I'd watched on YouTube, and I found his website and I signed up for a session. And his wife was actually getting her certification in the body code, which was the second level. And so I did a session with her, and I got off the phone and I was just like, yeah, I feel lighter. I feel better. I don't feel quite as heavy. Maybe there is something to this. And at that point I was like, well, maybe it's the placebo effect. I don't know. And a couple of days went by and I started feeling bad again. I was like, oh, maybe this doesn't work. But something kept telling me, you need to try again. You need to try someone different. So I went on to the Discover Healing website, which is where I got my certification. And I found a practitioner off of their website. So made an appointment and had the session. And after the session, I was like, I feel lighter than I did the first time. Okay. All right. About 3 or 4 days went by, and then I started to feel bad again. I was like, ugh, maybe this doesn't work. Why isn't it lasting? Why isn't all of this gone yet? And I think what happened was my expectation of energy healing was that it was going to be instantaneous. that whatever I was going to have worked on was going to be gone in one session. And I learned very quickly that because we're humans, we have many layers, as Shrek says. And so sometimes we have to have more than a few sessions to get to the root cause of the issue, because we have inherited energies from our parents. We absorb energies from everybody around us. We create our own emotional energies. And so when you pile all of that stuff on top of past lives, different timelines, different dimensions, there can be a lot of stuff that is contributing to one problem. And then that's where it can get overwhelming. But I want listeners to understand that most of the time, energy healing is not instantaneous. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not, because we have a lot of beliefs that might also hinder our healing process.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. It's not instantaneous, and so many of us think it's going to be. Can you explain the emotion code, like as if you were saying it to a 5-year-old? So you're finding these trapped emotions through muscle testing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we don't feel our feelings, when we don't allow ourselves to be angry or be sad or even be joyful, sometimes they can get trapped and stifled. They can find a spot in our body and they can just sit there. And then over the years, that sadness just starts to eat away at wherever it's sitting. And what we can do is we can ask the body, hey, do you have any trapped sadness in your body? And we can test with muscle testing. So I use the ring to ring method, which is putting your index finger and your thumb together, and then you put them together. And if I say my name is Tenya and it locks, my name is Amanda and it lets go. So as a proxy, I can ask, is there sadness trapped in your body? Yes or no. If we get a yes, go, okay, can we release it? And releasing it, for me, every time I help a client to release energy, we transmute it, and it automatically transmute into love and gratitude. Because I don't want it to go back out as sadness. I want to transmute it into a more happy energy, so that if that attaches to someone, then it's a happy energy. It's a good energy. We don't want to pass on that negative energy. And so if we're able to release it without needing to know what age you got it at, or what event it's attached to, or what kind of energy it is. If it's inherited, was it passed down to you during conception? And how many generations back does it go? If you were at 9/11 and you were around all those people who were feeling all these feelings at the same time, you could have absorbed some of their feelings as well. And so sometimes you're carrying around emotions and responding to emotions that aren't even yours, which is crazy, right? And then you can also share them with other people. So if you're in an event with another person, say 9/11 again, you can share those same emotions. They're not absorbed, but you share that same event. So you're going to share those same emotions. So if we don't need to know what age you got it, where it came from, then we can just let it go. But sometimes there's more layers underneath of it. We might need to know if it's inherited, or if it is yours, what age. And then if it's yours, is it attached to another energy? Is it attached to another emotion, or is it attached to a belief or a broadcast message, which is like a frequency that you're sending out?
Okay. You explained that really well. Made it look.
I tend to go off on tangents when I start explaining things.
No, like I did get the gist of what you were saying though. And I liked how you even mentioned joy too. I think a lot of people highlight the more negative feelings. But even sometimes we don't allow ourselves to feel the joy, and
Exactly.
and like pinpointing where that was. Like I could really visualize what you were saying. Like I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
It made a lot of sense to me.
Well, when someone stifles their joy, so think about going to see your ultimate music act, right? Who's your most favorite singer of all time?
Taylor Swift.
Okay. So you get to go and see Taylor Swift, and you get backstage VIP passes to meet Taylor Swift. And you're with some friends who don't understand how you can get so excited to meet Taylor Swift. So because you're worried about what those people might think, when you start getting giddy and acting like a 6-year-old because you get to meet the one person that just look at you, you're just so giddy, but just
Yeah.
trying to stifle that can get stuck.
Yeah.
And it can still cause problems in your body because it's stuck. So that's why it's important, even as adults, to have fun, to laugh, to get excited. And if you have a hard time getting excited, now I use Christmas as an example because I love Christmas. I wanted to go to Vermont for a Hallmark like Christmas moment. I went in February, but in my head, it was Christmas. And there was so much snow on the ground. And my husband said, he goes, I didn't realize how much you wanted to go to Vermont and have your Hallmark moment in a log cabin in the snow until he saw my face light up when we were passing through the snow. I kid you not, I was like a 5-year-old on Christmas morning. And if you can harness that feeling and feel that feeling more often, it'll help to move that energy out as well. Because you're going to replace those bad feelings with that good feeling, which is why I suggest the energy work, because it's a quick and easy way to clear out those energy balls, to leave room for better stuff and leave room for you to do the conscious work.
Now, you mentioned the body code and that being the second level.
Yep.
And how is that different from the emotion code?
So the body code goes into the body. It goes into the chakras. It can go into toxins. Toxins leave energy behind. It goes into entities. So you have a spirit attachment, a disembodied spirit, that kind of thing. It goes into those. It can also go into like releasing EMF or your gallbladder or your liver and finding trapped emotions and other stuff in there. And then there's also the belief code, which is the third level, which is going into working with a belief and finding what negative programs or limiting beliefs are attached to that original belief that you want to shift. My work has really gotten much bigger than just those 3 certifications. I work from over 100 different charts when I work with a client. I also do entity removal and past life regression, and there's just a whole lot more in my toolbox than just the emotion code, the body code, and the belief code.
And now you mentioned past life regression. So when a client comes to you, like what's first step that you is it?
For a past life regression or just in general?
I did mean in general, but
Okay.
now I'm kind of curious on both.
In general, I always like to do a discovery call first because I want to make sure that you, as the client, feel comfortable talking to me. I think that is first and foremost. I want you to interview me to see if I'm the right practitioner for you. I may not be, and until then, I would rather you not send me money because it's non-refundable. So I want to make sure that we can work together. But then I also want to interview you as the client because, again, I want to make sure that you are ready to heal that you are ready to put in the work, because we can do all the energy work in the world. We can work every week for an entire year. But if you don't do the self-care work, if you don't do the conscious work to change your mindset, to have a healthier body, to have learn to set boundaries, learn to feel your emotions again, all that energy work is only going to last so long, because you're just going to start filling those spaces with stuff that is unhealthy. My goal is to heal you, heal you to the point where you don't need me anymore. I want to work myself out of a job. That's what I want to do. I don't want clients to stay with me for the same problem for 2 or 3 years. Now, if you want to stay with me because there's other things you want to work on, that's fine. But if we're working together for 6 months and you're still having anxiety attacks, I'm not the right practitioner for you. Because that's showing that there's something that is not working between us. Whether it's you're not doing your part, or that maybe there's a block in me that is preventing me from being able to help you. It's hard to tell sometimes, but yeah, I want to be worked out of a job.
No, I love that though, that approach that you don't want to be working with them on the same thing for 6 months. Like, you shouldn't be for anything really, whatever the area of life is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know firsthand that mindset work works. I've done it. That was part of my self-care, shifting my mindset to what do I already have in my life that is already so wonderful? And how can I use what I already have to make this part of my life that isn't so wonderful more wonderful?
Yeah.
But the energy work helped me to do that, because it freed up the space for me to be able to do that. I used to not be able to meditate. I would sit and my brain would just go wonky, because there was just so much going on in my brain and in my body that I couldn't sit still long enough for meditation to work. Once I started doing the energy work, I could then sit for 2 or 3 minutes, and now I can go an hour without having to move. I could never do that before. But it took the energy work allowed me to be able to do the conscious work, because I didn't have that stuff weighing me down and poking at me every time I wanted to try something new.
So I'm curious, if you have a suggestion for somebody and they're not sure where to begin in terms of energy work, what should be their first step?
If they can afford it, find an energy healer, find a practitioner that you resonate with. Find a modality first that you resonate with. And there are hundreds out there. So if you can, and a lot of practitioners will offer consultations or mini sessions at a lower rate cost for you to try. Just if they don't, you can even just reach out to them and ask them if they offer a reduced rate for a mini session or something. But try it. Be open to different techniques. I mean, and that's the biggest thing. The emotion code may not be the modality that works for you. And I may not be the right practitioner for you. But that doesn't mean that there's not a modality and there's not a practitioner out there who can help you. And if you don't have the money to invest in working with a practitioner, then learn how to do it yourself. There are, like, the emotion code. There's a book called The Emotion Code, and it teaches you in the book how to do it. But it comes down to practice. It comes down to willingness to want to heal and doing whatever you can to do that. even if it goes against the grain of a belief that you have, if there's the possibility that it can help you and not hurt you, then try it. Energy work works. It worked for me. It works for a lot of people. I just say try it. And if energy work is not something that you want to try yet, then do the self-care. Meditation is free. Journaling is free. Learning to feel your emotions is free. There's tons of resources out there on how to do all of that. There's resources on how to learn how to set boundaries and how to keep them. The 4 Agreements, my Bible, read it. And gratitude. I think gratitude is one of the biggest ones. Have a gratitude practice. Be grateful for your 2-ply toilet paper. Be grateful for the pen that you get to write with.
I didn't expect you to say school paper. I'm sorry.
I do that because people don't, it's such a simple thing that we take for granted, right? Until you have to wipe with a leaf, you may not realize just how comfortable 2-ply toilet paper is. So be grateful for it. And have fun with it. Healing does not have to be just weighted down. Have fun with it. Laugh. Just enjoy life. You only get one. Tomorrow may never come. Just enjoy it.
I love how you mentioned about being open, and just trying it. That's something I emphasize so much because, you're not going to know whether it works or even if you'll enjoy it, even if it's in terms of a hobby, a new career, a new whatever. You have this skepticism, but you're not going to know until you actually do the thing. You can think about it, you can hear about it, but you won't know.
There was a time when I went to church and I prayed to God and I was baptized and it was great at the time. It worked for my life. And you just don't know what's going to work for your life unless you try it.
I like how you said at the time, because life's full of seasons, and it might work for a time and then it might stop working, just because something works for you today doesn't mean it'll work for you forever,
Yep. Yeah. You may just need it temporarily. I love it so much that I decided to make a career out of it. But that's me. And I've had clients who have come to me for 3 or 4 sessions and then I never see them again. I was just a passerby in their story.
Yeah. You mentioned even if it goes against the grain of a belief you have. What do you mean by that?
So let's say that you are a very logical, scientific mind, right? Science is coming up to be able to prove that there is something to energy work. They're not there yet, but I think they're going to get there. But if you are so set on the science behind something and the science behind proving that something works, be more empowered to try things yourself. Don't take what somebody else says is going to work or not going to work to heart. Just because some men in a lab coat say that energy healing is not possible doesn't mean that it's not possible. My favorite quote is from the Santa Claus movie. Seeing is believing, believing isn't seeing.
Seeing is believing.
So you can believe something even if you don't see it. Look at us today.
That's so true. I don't know where I heard this, but I heard somewhere about every single thing you use in your daily life, no matter what it is, at some point didn't exist and it was invented by somebody. Even the computer I'm looking at, the microwave, every single thing. If somebody never followed through with that idea, you wouldn't be using whatever.
Right.
And that's with everything.
That's with everything. I mean, people used to probably drink water out of their hands, and then someone decided to make a cup. I mean, you could take water with you everywhere. How crazy is that? Like that people don't think of. I said electricity. I think there was a story I heard that people were scared to have electricity put into their homes for the longest time. And now you can't live without it. Now our electricity is running our cars.
I know. I want to transition a tad, but you mentioned Christmas a few times, so I feel like it's fitting. But I heard you mention this on one of your podcast episodes, and I think it's really key. But you know how holiday season is a great time to start new things.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on as to why you felt that?
God, Christmas is a time of joy. It's a time of coming together. And then you have New Year's right around the corner and everybody makes their New Year's resolutions and stuff like that. I honestly think that any time is a good time to start something new. But in that period between Christmas and New Year's, people really start to think about how do they want to live the following year? What are their goals? What is it that they want to do? So if you want to try something new, whether it's jumping out of an airplane or getting into a fitness or training routine, or try energy healing. Try something new, but seasons are for change. It's not just the weather that changes. It's not just the time that changes, when we, spring forward or fall back. But seasons change for a reason because we're supposed to be changing along with the seasons. Pick something each season to change because you'll be surprised at how many things that you can improve upon to make your life better so that you can thrive more than just survive.
I love everything you said there. In the episode, you touched upon how a lot of people don't want to start that new fitness routine during the hecticness, and it's almost better. And not that there's a better time, but if you can do it, even if you don't do it the best way, in the hecticness, in the busyness, then of course you'll be able to stick with it when life is not as hectic.
Yep. And I started mine yesterday.
I love that.
My fitness program. I had lost 20 pounds last year and then sprained my ankle. And within 2 months, I gained it all back. So yeah, I'm starting my fitness routine in the middle of Christmas because I know that if I do it when I'm crazy busy with family stuff and decorating and all that stuff, that I'll be able to do it when the new year starts.
I just wanted to bring that up because I don't think enough people talk about it. I hear so often, the new year, you start the goals, or even different people. I'm really into Rachel Hollis. She talks about starting in October, but I don't think enough people talk about the benefits of doing it during a busy season, because even if it doesn't look how you want it to look, even if it's not as many days as you want it to be, if you can do some version of it during a busier, hecticer season, of course you can do it when life is more normal for you,
Yep. And if it's not a fitness routine, start meditating, start journaling, start a healthy cooking. Pick something to start now, today. Was this Tuesday? Start on a Tuesday, 7:00 p.m. Start on a Tuesday at 7:00 p.m. Just start something new. Crochet, who cares? Start something new.
I love that. Oh my gosh. No, I completely agree. I loved this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Me too. Now, have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a big fan. Love him. He's got a podcast called On Purpose, and he ends his podcast with 2 segments. And I incorporated them into my podcast as well.
Okay.
First segment is the many sides to us. There's 5 questions that need to be answered in 1 word each.
Okay.
What is 1 word someone who is meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Smiley.
Of course it's a word. You can make up words. There's no rules. But I like that. What is one word someone that knows you extremely well would use to describe you as?
Elf.
Elf?
Because I love Christmas. I have Christmas out all year long. I do. I have a Christmas tattoo.
What's it of?
A Christmas tree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's on my arm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on my arm.
Does it say?
I don't know if I had to undo my panel more.
I'm very into tattoos, so that's why. Oh, it's big.
Yeah.
It is big. I was thinking like a little thing.
Yeah.
It is big. Okay. That's like, wow, that's a big.
Anna up here.
Oh my God. It is a full, if you guys are listening to me, she's got almost a sleeve of Christmas.
Well, I have an email to my tattoo artist. When her wait list opens up, I'm going to get the rest of my arm done as Christmas.
What is one word you'd use to describe yourself?
Oh, gosh. Scared comes to mind because there's so much I want to do, but I'm not ambitious to do it all.
What is one word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
I give unsolicited advice a lot. I do. Especially to those I care about because I want them to feel better. And so I try to give them suggestions on what they can try to feel better. And sometimes they don't want to hear that. They just want to be listened to. Yeah.
So what's the word?
I don't know. What is the word? Helpful. Overly helpful.
What is one word that you're trying to embody right now?
Listening.
Second segment is the final 5. And these can be answered in up to a sentence.
Okay, good.
What is the best advice you've heard or received?
Be impeccable with your word.
Why is
One
that
of
the
the
best?
4 agreements.
Why is that the best?
Because it's not just about speaking what you mean to other people. It's about speaking what you mean to yourself as well.
What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
Drink the Kool-Aid. I would have to say to treat others how they treat you. Whereas I'm more of treat others how you want to be treated. So if you want respect, you have to give respect. It's not the other way around.
What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
Items. Like stuff handed down from ancestor to ancestor. Because if I can't hold on to it and my kids don't want it, I don't want to keep it. It just takes up space.
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
That she led with love and she led with kindness.
If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I want to know why.
Oh, it would be to be kind to everyone, regardless of who they are. And I say this because of people who are against Blacks, gays, disabled people, anybody who's different than them. I think it's torn our country apart, that you can't just be kind to whoever is in front of you, just as they are. There's nothing wrong with any of us. Just be kind.
I completely agree. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. I loved this.
This was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Now, no pressure, but I do just like to leave it back to the guest. Any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
My tagline is, you are worth spending your time on. Because we do not take care of ourselves enough if we don't take care of ourselves. Self-care is not selfish. But if you don't take care of yourself so that you can help take care of others, then I think you're being selfish, because you're not able to give the best of who you are if you're depleted.
Well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. And now, where can the listeners connect with you?
designyourexistence.com. My website, same thing, designyourexistence.com. Facebook, Instagram, all at Design Your Existence.
Awesome. And I will link that in the show notes so they can connect with you directly. And thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I had a good time.
And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Mander's Mindset. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Mander's Mindset. I really hope you enjoyed this fun and inspiring conversation with Tenya. And now here are a few key takeaways for you to keep in mind. First of all, Tenya shared about how happiness comes from the present and the importance of finding peace and joy right here, right now, and not constantly seeking or looking for happiness in the future or in what's to come. Next, Tenya showed the importance of starting new things even when you're busy, whether it's fitness, meditation, journaling, a new passion for your career, whatever it may be. Starting a new habit or a new venture during a busy season, like the holidays, builds resilience and shows your commitment to personal growth. It also shows you that you can show up and do things even when life is more challenging, even when there are more things going on. You can still stick to your growth and development. Next, healing takes layers. Tenya reminded us that it's not an instantaneous journey, whether it's through energy work, self-care, or talk therapy, breath work, whatever it is, it takes time and there's layers to release what's been weighing you down. You can have a breakthrough and have success in one session, but you're not guaranteed to peel away at all of the layers. Next, self-care is essential. You can't pour from an empty cup. And now we've all heard this 1,000 times. But prioritizing your well-being is the key to showing up as the best version of yourself for the people in your life. And lastly, you are worth it. Tanya's powerful reminder is that you are worth spending time on. You are worth investing in. Don't underestimate the importance of investing in your own growth and your own happiness. You are worth the time. You are worth investing in yourself and improving your life, because by improving your life, you are going to improve the lives of everybody else around you. Really hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope this helps you tune in and tap in to the next level of your growth. As always, I really appreciate it if you left a rating, left a review, share this episode with anybody you think would benefit from hearing it. Subscribe to the show so you are updated when we release new episodes. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of this. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Mander's Mindset. Thanks, guys. Until next time. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.